You know, originally I was gonna put the cornflakes away, but instead I think they're gonna live there forever. Howdy! My name is Nonat, and if you've been on the D&D YouTube community for a while, you've definitely heard of and seen this face, Blaine Simple. Wait up, is your name a pun on like plain and simple, like Blaine Simple? Or is it just your name? Earlier this week, Blaine released this video, getting over the D&D community. And if you've paid any attention to the internet over the last 18 months, the D&D community has gone through some shit. OGL, AI, new system, changes people don't want, communities fighting and butting their own heads, let alone the people who are fighting over different systems. People are fighting about just D&D, and it hasn't stopped. Like, people have always fought about this stuff, obviously, but the last year and a half, it has been at the forefront of social media and D&D at large. And as someone on the sidelines from the Pathfinder community, it's exhausting. I try to keep my head out of it because I like playing these games for fun, talking about the things I love about them, and focusing on those things. But I've also been observing, and I made a few videos last year about all of the controversy in the community and everything, but I haven't touched on it since then. It's been at least a year since I've made any videos on the subject, unless you count my AI art stuff from earlier this year. I was in a bad headspace, don't watch those. But now, as the police sirens come for me to take me away from my crimes, in my last 30 minutes of freedom, I want to react to Blaine's video. I talked to them, they gave me express permission to make a reaction video. Thank you, Blaine, I really appreciate it. I hope I don't offend you with this. But I have a lot to say on this subject, and I'm curious to hear another creator who's gone through it probably more directly than I did, and what they have to say. And y'all, the format of this video is so creative, and I can't wait to experience it with you. And as always, with any kind of reaction content, please go watch the full video first. It's going to be the first line of the description is Blaine's original video. Go watch that first. Give Blaine your view before you give me your view, because reaction content, unless it's adding things, is not worth it. And it's never worth watching reaction content over the original. Let's do this. Ow. I played Getting Over It once. I love that Blaine has taken the narrative style of Getting Over It and made a video about D&D with it. I'm so ready. Take me away, Blaine.
There is no feeling more intense than starting over. For the majority of tabletop players, it's taking a step to learn a new system. The work you put into gathering a group to play, to all the materials you make for it, only to later be told around every corner that the game you play is riddled in problems.
Ooh, we're starting off strong, and I agree with you. Oh my god, the internet's instant reaction to, hey, I'm struggling with this one rule in this game I love, and the dog pile of, hey, have you considered Call of Cthulhu or Pathfinder? What about Fate Core? Do you want to play Blades in the Dark? It's a problem. I really hate it. It pushed me to a point of, like 2 years ago where I made a video just saying, hey, stop.
The Dungeons & Dragons community has shifted a lot in the last few years. In some ways, you could say that the entire tabletop scene didn't really kick off until D&D 5th edition.
Alright, I'm gonna disagree there with an addendum. I'm gonna say the whole tabletop online scene didn't really take off until 5th edition, because the internet was still a baby, and 4th edition flopped, so like, when 3.5 was going strong, the internet was nowhere near the gigantic thing it is now, and then not a whole bunch of people played 4th edition, so I will say that with Critical Role especially, 5th edition did kick off the modern tabletop online landscape, which has become its primary landscape, but I do think it's unfair to say that 5th edition D&D made tabletop gaming's, like, big scene.
Older editions of the game existed long before that, as did other tabletop games, but you cannot deny the spike of popularity and cultural relevance that 5e
Absolutely.
had for the scene. At one point, climbing the mountain that was this game was more like a hill. You could always make steady progress if you kept at it, and there were never any major hurdles in your way. But nowadays, it feels like everything is trying to stop you from enjoying this tabletop game, with the community speaking out about their grievances to make the cliff even more sheer, or to
It's so
encourage you to
true.
restart and climb a different game's mountain entirely. I've seen people become so filled with negativity for D&D over the last 2 years that they spread it into any conversation about it.
That's so real. Oh my god. People get so excited to talk about the things they hate these days. And it's something I had to realize about myself, because I did it. I was doing it without and I don't think people realize they're doing it either. It's a very slippery slope from, I'm going to be critical about this game I love because I love it, but the more you talk and critique it, and especially if you get a little sloppier with your critiques, it just becomes bitching. And it becomes fun to talk about because it elicits a response from the person you're talking to. When you complain about a game that you know somebody else loves, you know they're going to want to defend it. It's the classic strategy of internet trolls who are just saying, oh, I want to get a rise out of this person, so I'm going to make fun of it. And I'm not saying that your dislike of the game isn't genuine. You're allowed to dislike things, but injecting it into conversations just to get that argument started with somebody, that's not fun for anybody involved.
About it. However, I'd rather spare you from looking any deeper if this is somehow your first time hearing about D&D drama. If you've managed
Stay out
to
of it.
avoid the
Just
discourse
enjoy the
around this
game.
tabletop game
Oh my
for
god,
this
just play
long
pretend
and
with your
value the
friends and
time
throw
you spend
rocks
with
around.
your friends playing it, I
Yes.
suggest you pause this video and come back some other time. My only advice before you click off is to learn D&D with one of the newest starter sets and supplement the rest of your games with as much homebrew and third-party
Hell
books
yeah.
as you can.
Absolutely valid. I agree with that. People are scared to homebrew early on. People are like, oh, I just started playing this game. I don't want to start homebrewing. Yo, just jump into it. Homebrew is so fun. You can make the game your own. Don't expect a single core rulebook or player's handbook to have everything you're going to want out of the game to tell the story you want to tell. There is enough content in that book to tell an infinite number of stories, but your story might not fall into that infinite number, if that makes any sense. Don't be afraid to homebrew. Make stuff up. It doesn't have to be balanced. Make it cool and fun.
Well,
That's the moral
since
of
you're
the story.
still here, let's get acquainted. You found a
Blaine.
niche content creator online making metaphors about D&D and mountains to either be the next hurdle in your path, someone who's going to help guide you up, or someone to encourage you to climb something else entirely. Thanks for coming along for the climb. It's
Thanks for
about
having the
time
climb,
we drop
Blaine.
the energy for a bit and just talk. Creator to creator.
Wait, hold on. Wait, you just dropped that like a cliffhanger at the end of a Saturday morning cartoon. Creator to creator? Hello? That me. Me am do create. I'm loving this entire style of video, Blaine. Kudos. I'm so invested.
Whenever a new edition of D&D would come out, the vibes would always be bad. This
True.
reached a tipping point around the release of 4th edition, and a vocal handful felt the rules weren't balanced at all. This would become a recurring issue with D&D, where its
I don't know a whole lot about 4th edition, so I can't really add too much here, but I do think a big complaint was that it slowed things down. Not that it wasn't balanced. I've actually heard that 4E was incredibly well balanced with its once per day, once per encounter kind of ability style, but that it felt far too much like a tactical game rather than a role-playing game with combat. That's something that no one talks about. For every failed system and failed change that the community doesn't agree with, it inspires dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of new homebrew creators to change the rules, build their own systems, augment the 5th edition systems and any other systems they may
Anyway,
play.
the community around tabletop
for every
role-playing
failed
games
system, there
was
is a
still
new
small
homebrewer
at the
who
time,
comes out of the
which
woodwork.
allowed D&D to scurry out from its older, disgruntled community and jumpstart with another brand new edition. D&D 5e came out in 2014 and gained cultural infamy across the entire tabletop sphere through genius marketing campaigns and the largest Twitch channel in the
It's interesting that you do say infamy, because I do agree. I think when 5th edition first came out, it was an entirely new player base. After the 3.5 and 3rd edition and AD&D traditionalists were burned by 4th edition, or what they took as being burned by 4th edition, I don't think they trusted Wizards of the Coast to do better again. You know, I'm sure some of them gave 5th edition a try and eventually converted over thanks to what you're about to talk about, the Twitch marketing and everything. But I think a lot of them stuck with 3.5 even when 5th edition came out. And so 5th edition's fan base was entirely new, it was younger, it was people who hadn't played D&D before because 5th edition was being marketed as a simpler game. And it worked.
world, starting a campaign running 5th edition. The cards were set for Wizards to take hold and cement their system as the tabletop role-playing game. That, coupled with relaxing their license to give creators freedom to publish content again, was the recipe for success.
I sure hope they don't change the license again.
Office workers would talk about getting a group together to play. School clubs opened up for the sole purpose of discussing and hosting the game.
The moment people realized on social media they could share their D&D adventures with each other, that opened a whole other world for tabletop role-playing games. This is stuff that used to be set in, like, single forum posts where they would just tell their character's story, and it would get, like, a couple views. But when people realized, like, oh, on Twitter and Instagram or whatever, and especially, like, TikTok, they can act out their scenes. On Twitter, they can, like, share small snippets of their stories saying, in tonight's session, I fell on a bomb. It opened up this whole new connection that, in a way it had never before, TTRPG communities were connected. TTRPGs up until 5th edition were very much your group. Maybe you talked about it with someone at your local game store if they understood, but for the most part, D&D and other game systems were very much shared in your friend group. You played it with your friends, unless you did, like, Pathfinder Society.
To the deadliest villains known to mankind. It was a monstrous mountain of passion that formed.
Mountain of Passion is a
the living heart of
great way to put
creativity's
it.
fountain. A plethora, with everything we ever thought of in it. Grand, infinite, unsorted.
It sure was unsorted. Oh my god. But yeah, no, it was a huge creative boom. Because 5e was so simple, it was easy to make new character and concepts around. The advantage-disadvantage system is one of the most beautifully simplistic things I've seen in a TTRPG. And understandably, people got bored with it. It's been out for 10 years. Rolling 2 dice and taking higher or lower does get old after a while. But when it came to making brand new content, it was so easy to just have a class feature that said, when X happens, gain advantage. When enemy does Y, give them disadvantage. You could make 50 unique classes just based off of that one little algorithm.
The biggest celebrities are playing it. I heard you can make any character you want and do anything you want. I rolled a natural 20 and did something cool. That's the true lifeblood of the game. And
Can we talk about how 10 years ago, if you told someone, yo, that's like a natural 20, good job, 99% of people would not know what you're talking about. Today, I'd wager a solid 50% of people would know what you mean when you say natural 20. It's wild how much the TTRPG lingo has leaked into the mainstream, because the mainstream has, TTRPGs are mainstream now. People understand that there are more than just 6-sided die. There's 20 and 8 and 10 and 12. And it's wild how that didn't used to be the norm.
what the older fans of the game were enjoying and what the newer fans were expecting were two completely different ideas. 5th edition was still a game where turn-based combat was the main priority, and anyone can roleplay in a tabletop role-playing game, but what needs to be understood is that most of 5e's rules don't enhance what mainstream players want.
This is such a good point. I know exactly where you're going with this, in that 5e is sort of an enigma for how popular it is, when you think about it. The main audience that 5e attracted were those new, younger players who mainly wanted to roleplay, and these rules facilitate that roleplay. And what the old school players wanted was a deep, customizable, strategic combat simulator in a lot of cases. A survival combat simulator dungeon crawler. And 5e doesn't do either of these things necessarily well. 5e is a very basic combat simulator with very simplistic rules to facilitate die rolls, RNG, and stuff. When it comes to roleplay, D&D does not have that much support for roleplay when it comes to actual rulings. They have skill checks. They have some spells that you can use creatively. That's mostly it. There's an occasional class feature which might let you, like, talk to animals or interact with the world in a way that's not specifically for combat. But at the end of the day, I'd wager 80% of 5e's rules are catered towards combat encounters while not being super deep and complex like the old school players want. I'm curious to see if that's what Blaine's going to say here.
They want the immersion that the largest Twitch channel has. The stereotypes of rolling a...
Oh, not where I thought you were going with this at all. Okay, go on.
natural 20 and blowing up the universe. An endless sea of ideas, wit, and humor at the drop of a hat.
The Mercer
D&D
effect.
does a good job at pretending this is all possible, or the norm, and the fan base grew too quickly for Wizards to pivot the rule set trying to cater it. Now, D&D has an image to uphold. The average fan isn't like a YouTuber urging you to pick up a new tabletop RPG every week, but someone who joined because of the memes. The community's saturation of tales that never acknowledge more than the hype behind an imaginary story and a single dice roll. D&D
That's all
from
you
the
need
eyes of
sometimes.
Wizards of the Coast is finished. The mechanics at their core are what they will basically always be.
That is true, and that's basically been hammered home by the announcement of the new 5th edition. It's the same game with an errata. You know? They're not changing much. They're not changing much of the rules. They're updating some classes and revamping some class features. But it's D&D... I hesitate to call it 5.5. It almost, from what I've seen, looks like 5.1, 5.2. They don't want to change anything because, as Blaine is saying, the audience fears change. Nobody wants to change, even if that change could lead to a better experience, because the difficulty getting there would turn enough people off and they wouldn't sell.
If you realize that D&D might not be what you hoped, maybe you're ready to do some digging into what you do enjoy about the game, and find a new tabletop system that caters to it.
Ooh,
To most of you,
interesting.
this will be a very personal and daunting step.
It's
Are
not
you
easy.
ready to depart from the largest tabletop community and start from scratch learning a
Well,
new game?
Okay, I don't think it's fair to say depart from D&D's community. You know, just because you're playing a new game doesn't mean you can't play the old game. That's what blows my mind about some of these arguments, is people say, if you switch to Pathfinder, it must mean you're never playing D&D again. And depending on your situation, this can be true. You know, finding the time and people to get even one game a week is tough. You know, so not everyone has the time to play 2 campaigns, absolutely. But there's nothing saying you can't take a break from D&D, play a 3-session Pathfinder campaign, or alternate campaigns with different DMs, you know? I don't understand where this idea of, if you change systems, you can't play D&D anymore came from, and I think it is a really poor way to explain things. Not poor like Blaine is doing a poor job, just a poor mindset that a lot of people seem to have.
There's systems out there that'll no doubt give you exactly what you thought D&D was lacking. You were the one who chose something new to scale. It may be muddier, but you like the mud. It's a challenge you were looking for. Your preference. Your choice. And all it took was gazing across the horizon of D&D's mountain of influence to see it.
Blaine's not wrong there, you know? You make that choice yourself. And don't let other people force you to. You know, if you're going to learn a new rule set, it takes time. It's tough. And so you should want to do it. Don't feel forced. Which is why this whole community idea of trying to yell at people for not playing your system is the worst way to get more players into it. I'll never understand.
Yet some of you are still climbing this D&D mountain over the others. I guess you don't completely hate it since you've come this far. Was it the days you spent watching every episode of Critical Role, their enjoyment being a pillar of inspiration? Is it the year-long campaign you have going on with your friends that you can't just abandon? Or the YouTubers you watch with ideas to patch up the game and make it their own? What I'm saying is that D&D isn't a game. It's a mindset.
Interesting.
If that means overhauling everything and playing an entirely different game and still calling it D&D, then go for it.
Preach, Blaine! Let the people in the back hear that. No matter how many rules you change, even if you change 80% of the system, it's still D&D if you want it to be. You know, there are people playing their own completely home-brewed 3.5 based system where everything is different except for the die roll mechanics. That's still D&D if they want to call it D&D. D&D has no set way to play. At the beginning of every rulebook of almost every TTRPG, not just D&D, but Pathfinder 2, there is a paragraph that says, these are guidelines, not static rules. You and your group can change anything you want if it makes the game better for what you are looking for.
The important part is to never get stuck believing D&D is a single unchanging
Yes!
idea. Any
Let's
book
go!
that builds on the ideas
Shout
of
it
D&D
for the
is
people in the
valid.
back!
Any player who gets more fun out of changing the rules can do so.
Yes!
We're having fun
Yes!
despite what people or books say. Whatever we thought this game was when we got into this hobby, we made it.
Oh, I love that line. Just no matter what you thought it was, what people told you it was, what the internet says it is, once you've played and gotten your story, you made that. You, your group, your friends, your DM, your players, you made that game. It's not like playing Skyrim and saying, did you choose the Stormcloaks or the other one? It's, ooh, what did you do? What did your DM set up for you? How did you respond? How did the dice do it for you? What is your unique, unduplicatable story? You know?
Every praise, slight, and critique shot at the game has always been through my own personalized lens. To the people with similar prescriptions, I might be an invaluable tool. To others, I could be radical and a danger to the side of the community they enjoy.
Oh my god, that's just the life of a content creator. Let's be real here, Blaine. I've had people calling me like the Antichrist of Pathfinder because I don't back up people when they say play it over D&D. Because I vouch for D&D just as much as Pathfinder, there's so many people who hate my content, and it's kind of hilarious. One thing I've learned in the last year of my life is you can't please everybody. And if you try to please everybody, you're gonna please nobody. So, yeah, no, it's a hard life. It takes a lot of getting used to. But, yeah, the hate is real. But the fans are realer.
You should respect the average players who fear the idea of starting over with a new system. The people who modify the game, who move on to new ones. The people who never involve themselves with the issues and play 5e as it was written. The people who oppose the newer additions and stay with what they know. And I hope you respect me, who wants nothing more than to lay this all out to help others come to terms. And to that, I'll respect you.
Absolutely. 100%. That is the way it should be. Respect the game, and that your experience will not be the same as somebody else's. Whether you use the same rules or not, even if you play the game using the exact same rules, your story is not gonna be the same as those people who played at the other table. The fact that this one game can be so universally known and played while still having totally unique experiences like that, I think I agree with you, Blaine, is exactly what makes D&D and tabletop role-playing as a whole so special. Like I said with the video game analogy earlier, when you both play Skyrim, you can talk about the individual moments of the game, like when Alduin attacks, that you can both relate to. You both went through it, you both fought the same boss, you both used the same mechanics in the same situation. When you're playing D&D, it's not going to be the same mechanics, it's not going to be the same situation, it's not going to be the same control scheme, whatever you want to call it. It's not a perfect metaphor, because all of the context surrounding it is different. With a video game, you play the same levels against the same enemies with the same controller as your friend. In D&D, you fight totally different enemies in totally different areas with totally different controls, being the different classes, the different rule systems, the different everything. I guess you can say the dice are your controller, but I really don't think that's the case. I think it's a much more apt metaphor to say the controller is the players and the DM, who are cultivating this experience and controlling it as it happens in only a way that they can. Respect is something that, and this goes far beyond tabletop role-playing games, respect is a commodity these days, and it's sad. Respect doesn't cost you money or time or physical effort. Respect is so easy. I don't know why it's so hard in the modern day and age to respect our fellow humans, even when it comes to something stupid like the game they prefer to play. Like, there's a lot more pressing issues that deserve respect, but, whew.
I've climbed this mountain many times before. Some would say I've gotten pretty good at it. It's gotten to the point where people started to recognize me on the way up. And there are other content creators that I spot on occasion and hail to as well. But after Wizards of the Coast tried to close off the trail by revoking 5e's game license, the ecosystem of the mountain changed.
I don't want to go through this again.
We knew how this ended years before, and now it was happening again. Nobody took this news.
Hell no.
The online battle was fierce, and the D&D community's anger made a change. But even then, fans still felt betrayed. No longer was the vocal community lighthearted and eager to share their love for what got them into tabletop RPGs. Everything was now layered in aggression. Fans belittled each other for liking aspects of...
I talked about that, 20 minutes earlier in this video. Yeah, that people are just arguing now more than sharing what they love about these games, and it's so depressing.
Some creators turned into news outlets to direct the aggression, and although we fought for a stance of good, some let the storm take them and began spilling needless drama and passion.
I did that at one point. I got to the point where I read too far into a job posting that Wizards of the Coast put up, and I was totally wrong. I took that video down. I was incredibly ashamed of it, and it's very easy to let the drama storm take you up and push you in a direction you don't even realize you're going. Because, as a creator, your revenue, your self-worth, depending on how you're looking at things, is derived by viewership. And when you start realizing, oh, those drama videos, those get the views, it's really easy to fall into the pattern of making more, making them faster, and doing less research. And that can lead to misinformation, which is very damaging.
Even now, though, it's common to see people disagree, and the voices of some D&D creators have become more cynical on every fiber of the game system because of that. I think they lost their way on this journey, and when it's all under a lens of malice, the entire community becomes more passive-aggressive as a result.
I agree. No, 100%. Like, going off what I said earlier, it's easy to realize, oh, people are loving these videos where I dog on D&D. I'm gonna make more of them because they do make more revenue. And like Blaine said, emotions took the wheel. We were no longer looking at things from a fun or mechanical perspective at this point. We were finding anything to insult and dog on because it's what was popular at the time, and it helped us very cathartically get out our aggression against Wizards of the Coast. That was a fantastic way to put it, Blaine. And the waterfall effect onto the rest of the community who follows these creators, whether you do consciously or not, who you watch and how much you watch them will directly affect your thoughts and opinions on a subject. If you watch a creator 3 times a week dog on D&D 5e, chances are, and you're like watching them because you like agree with them and enjoy their content, chances are your view of D&D 5e is going to shift accordingly, and that led to that aggression just becoming this widespread virus, for lack of a better term.
Recognize what this game always was to you, what it still can be without supporting the company you despise, and what you gain by fighting on its side, not against.
In that same vein of becoming more negative and jaded, I definitely feel that. I was approaching my 4th year on YouTube at the beginning of 2024, and my Pathfinder videos were not anything I wanted them to be. So I stepped away. I stepped away from Pathfinder for 4.5 months, and you know what happened? It rekindled my spark of love for the game. I'm playing it twice a week now. I'm making 5 videos a week for it because I love the system. But if you asked me back in January, I was sick of it.
People are quick to shout that anyone willing to debate this for so long should just go play Pathfinder.
There it is! I was waiting for it!
A game often brought up as a slight against D&D and cheekily referred to as better D&D.
It's not
well,
better
I played
D&D.
Pathfinder 2e, and it wasn't for me.
Good on ya.
Turn-by-turn combat is what the game chose to master. It's the exact opposite of what I believe tabletop newcomers should be looking for in their first game.
Totally
It's an
valid.
even more acquired taste.
I will say it depends on the newcomer. On a case-by-case basis. If this is someone who's loved games like XCOM, like like Baldur's Gate 3, like Kingmaker, if they love strategy RPGs and they have experience, especially when it comes to video games, a lot of that can translate over and be a great first experience if they're interested in something very combat-focused. Pathfinder does have a lot of roleplay support as well, but it's buried. And I will say that if you are a newcomer, if you're a group of 5 brand new players who have no idea what they want out of TTRPGs, 5e is way better of a starting point than Pathfinder. Trying to jump into Pathfinder's 500-page rulebook with no previous experience is a lot. And like Blaine said, a lot of people aren't looking for perfectly balanced, fancy turn-by-turn combat, and that is 100% respectable.
The people who so adamantly suggest Pathfinder miss the crux of the issue.
They sure did.
It's not about your
sure
unique journey
did.
through tabletop games, but theirs. They felt better playing Pathfinder, so why wouldn't you right out the gate? It assumes so much, and it's so selfish.
It's so selfish. You're 100% right. Absolutely. And I will expand on this, saying people don't necessarily do it maliciously. People aren't doing this because they are an asshole. You know, that's not how most humans work. A lot of them do it to be trolls.
DC 20.
But that's because they saw the bandwagon, they jumped onto it, and they wanted to stoke that flame. There's a lot of people out there who do think they're doing the right thing, by preaching the gospel of Pathfinder 2e, even if it's not consensually. So while I do think the entire situation sucks and people shouldn't do it, there's a lot of people out there who don't even realize they're doing it.
MCDM, all these new games being discussed, the pros and cons,
The
D&D
D&D killers.
At the
Oh
end
my
of the
God.
day, these projects will stay as branches linked to the trunk of D&D, the game whose
I agree with
brand
that.
image attracts the main audiences that will ever give them a try. And
No matter how good your game is, you will never be able to beat Hasbro's marketing budget. I'm just going to say that. Maybe 100 years down the line, maybe something will give. You know, anomalies happen. But as it stands, no matter how good a new system is, D&D has over 60 years of pre-established fans and stories and marketing and material. Whereas a new game like MCDM, when that comes out, I'm sure it'll be a great system. It's not going to touch D&D in the name in the way of publicity and mainstream attention. It's just not how society works.
And that's fine, because D&D does a little bit of everything. People who've played it might evolve a taste for one aspect of the game over others, and jump to a branch once they've climbed the base.
Oh, I love that metaphor so much. If modern D&D is the trunk, then your first few campaigns are you climbing that trunk. And some people will be perfectly happy staying and climbing that trunk higher. Other people might see a big branch like Pathfinder or MCDM and take that leap from the trunk to hang out on those branches. I love that. That is my favorite thing you've said in this video so far, Blaine.
For me, though, D&D is nearly perfect, and I'm not dying to play anything else. This
You feel
shouldn't
that
be
way,
controversial,
absolutely.
yet it
Totally
feels
fine.
awkward
It's
in
not
a sea of creators
controversial.
who almost never say anything directly positive about the game anymore. Do we just cover D&D now because it's the only one people can make a living talking about?
Real. So f***ing real. Oh my god. Yup.
I can't imagine how the burnout must feel.
Not great. Doesn't feel great. I took 4 months off. Best choice I ever made. Don't be afraid to take time off. The algorithm might punish you. It's not worth the quality drop that your content's gonna suffer if you keep forcing yourself to make videos about something you're burned out about.
The 2024 rulebook is releasing in an attempt to polish 5th edition. It's backwards compatible and isn't going to make any 5e materials obsolete. Some people are acting like this is an entire new edition and getting swept up in the confusion. Louder fans
That's partially because Wizards of the Coast was so emphasizing that it was a new edition, especially last year amidst all the drama. They were saying that this is not D&D 5th edition. You know, what's coming out is totally new. They hammered that home in some of their marketing material. So yeah, that's definitely where the confusion came from.
make it out to either be the end of the way we currently play or completely unremarkable. It doesn't
I'm
matter
banking on
what
the
was
latter.
changed, or even if anything was fixed. People will always get riled up, and
Oh, of
its
course.
company causing community-wide controversies every month wasn't gonna help that.
Oh, Watsy. Yeah, no matter what happens, they could release the perfect system. People will still complain. Because at the end of the day, these games are subjective. There is nothing objective about role-playing games. You cannot say this is true 100% of the time about anything. You can't even say something like all athletics checks use the strength score. Rules as written, sure. But
YouTubers who
maybe
make
someone
D&D
says not.
videos
Maybe
are
a DM says, no, use your dexterity for this. Because I said so. Because you're the DM, and you can do that. There's nothing objective about RPGs whatsoever.
expected to know every rule spanning a dozen core rulebooks, hundreds of
It's
pages
so
long.
true.
And some of them have fan bases that really dig into them when they get something wrong.
Anyway.
People watch these videos to learn things, and when it's incorrect, it's a form of misinformation. Creators owe their fans to study the rules and get things right the first time.
gotten
But
that
fans should also temper
word
their
for word,
expectations
I've
and
gotten
give the
that
creator
comment
a chance
before.
to correct their mistakes.
Oh my
I've
God.
been lucky to have an audience that points out when I'm wrong and doesn't immediately assume the worst. But the fan bases of other channels seem to take it a lot more maliciously.
I really hope I can find one specific comment. If I can find it, it's on screen right now about how it's my duty, it's my responsibility to make sure I get every single rule right. And if I don't, I'm doing a disservice to the entire path. Oh, that comment was ridiculous. I hope I can find it.
leaving the creator to be farming engagement and clickbait. It's warranted though when these YouTubers are known for dying on their hills rather than acknowledging their faults.
I'll acknowledge my fault 6 ways to Sunday. If I messed up, I messed up, and I want to learn how to be better about it. You know what I'm saying? What's the point of sitting there like, I might have messed up, but I'm me, so I'm right? Why wouldn't you want to improve? You know, why isn't that the regular desire, is to get better?
They just wanted to be told that what they made was great and to leave it at that. Then there's smaller creators who just began posting, already looking for collabs, hoping for a piece of the pie solely through networking and without any of the personal journey. It gives me an appreciation.
It's really hard against the modern day algorithm where it feels like collaborating and cross-pollinating is the only way to grow, but I do agree that people jump into collaborations far too soon. You should have some level of base infrastructure that you've built on your own, as well as some kind of relationship with the person you're going to collab with. I have heard so many horror stories through the years of people having their first interaction with a person be a collaboration. I try to avoid that if at all possible. I want to hang out off stream. I want to hang out and like play a game or something together, or just talk in Discord to see if we even have any of that chemistry, that clicking together. Because why would you want to make a video or go on stream together if you don't even know if the content is going to be good with you two together? Creator plus creator doesn't equal twice as good content. It's just a different format.
For the dozens of creators in our community who only made a few D&D videos and stopped when they had nothing else to talk about. No muddying work with their hobby, no ego, and no asking for handouts. It was just the love of the game for these people, and I give them my respect.
I do respect that, absolutely. It gets complicated, you know? This is my full-time job right now. So when I say things like, hey, you should go ahead and pledge to the No Net One's Patreon to get your name on the list like all these cool people for $10 a month, it helps support me and keep the lights on, thanks so much. The reason I do that is because this is my job. You know, at the end of the day, as much as I love my job, I wouldn't trade it away for the world, it's also how I pay my bills. And in the modern landscape, asking for handouts, quote-unquote, is part of the job. How many YouTube videos do you see from every creator that says, hey, hit that like button, hey, subscribe to the channel, hey, share the video, hey, pledge on Patreon? We do it because we have to. Because without doing that, we miss out on potential revenue, potential income to either improve our content or just keep making ends meet. It's hard and it sucks. And if I could get away without asking for likes, subs, and donations, I would. I would love to do that. I would love to not have to ask for those, but that's just not the world we live in. Especially
there's D&D creators who are blaming their failures on the bigger YouTubers.
If you are blaming your own failure on other people, you're not doing it right. Everything that goes wrong, at the end of the day, is your fault somehow. Sure, there can be luck involved, but it's not because a bigger YouTuber covered something first or covered it after you and got more views. You know, just because XP to level 3 gets more views doesn't mean he's stealing my views, you know? If anything, I stole his views when I made him in Pathfinder and he reacted to it.
They see the success that somebody else has and copy their formula, only to wonder why they have less subscribers. That, or they see their fellow creator as an obstacle to overcome.
That is so toxic. That is such a toxic way to see content creation. At the end of the day, you are responsible for your content. You are not responsible for somebody else, what they do or don't do. And if they get more success than you, that's not something you should concern and waste brain space on. You know, focus on yourself, your content. How can you improve? It's fine to say, I'm going to work harder to try to outperform this person. You know, I don't think it's necessarily a healthy way to look at it, but if it is an incentive you can use to improve your own quality, go for it. Just don't let it build hatred and vitriol for your fellow creators. So at the same time, we're all boats in the ocean. You know, sinking one boat doesn't make your boat better.
Bigger number, better person. It's a terrible mindset to have and does nothing but tense up creators. The support network we all have with each other helps, and the bad apples burning their bridges with everyone is silent punishment enough. Just pray that it isolates them enough to burn out and leave the community on their own terms.
I've lived through exactly that. It sucks, but it happens. You know, bad apples do burn bridges. We move on. You know, you don't focus on how it hurt or what went wrong. You don't focus on trying to make somebody else feel that way because it's only fair. You know, there's no reason to funnel that hatred to somebody else. Just move on. And Blaine's absolutely correct about the support system. The people I've met and talked to over the last 4 years has changed my life. All these other content creators that are within, a DM's reach from me is so cool. We may not talk super often. There are some that I only talk to maybe once or twice a year. But I know they're there. And if I reached out and said, hey, I guarantee they'd say hi back. And that alone is super comforting, having other people in the same space.
It feels like D&D YouTubers are running out of things to talk about.
Oh my god, no, Blaine, you can't just stab me in my throat like that. Oh, it's so true. It's so true. There's only so much you can cover. I'm blessed because I'm one of the only people making, mechanical guides to Pathfinder, and the remaster just came out. So I just got, a full year's worth of content to cover, and Paizo pumps out so much stuff that I'm lucky that I have plenty of archetypes and ancestries and new classes to cover all year round. But even with Pathfinder's amount of content, I was running out. Before the remaster, I was so lost on what to do with my channel. That's why I started covering the OGL stuff and some D&D stuff and class comparisons and stuff, because you need to keep innovating. But at the end of the day, like I said, these are subjective games. Making content about games that anyone can change the rules of is so hard to do long term.
After you've made a video on how to prepare D&D, host D&D, play D&D, what else do you cover? Most turn to discussing stuff in the newest official books just because it's finally something else to talk about. When the well is really dry, some will take a really basic idea that anyone could have figured out on their own and stretch it to reach mid-roll ads.
Listen, Blaine, just because I made a video last week about how success and failure aren't black and white doesn't mean you can call me out like this.
Or if you're a new channel that's gaining traction, make a tutorial video on the same topic everyone else did, with the only difference being the editing style and humor.
Okay, that's valid. That is 100% valid. Just because somebody else has covered something doesn't mean you can't. Just do it different. That's how you stand out. That's how you get noticed. You change the game and do it your way. Whether it's super fancy editing, just an explosive personality that gets people watching. Because a lot of times, people don't care necessarily what you're talking about, as long as they just enjoy hearing you talk. I have viewers who know everything about Pathfinder. They know the game so much better than me, but they like hearing somebody talk about it. So they put me on in the background while they played video games or whatever.
So if you're big enough, it's almost expected that you make tutorials to stand as the new definitive tour guide for the hobby. At the heart of all of these videos are an attempt to be educational, though. And
absolutely. As silly and over the top as I tend to get, my main goal is to be informational. My main goal, if anyone ever asks me what my channel is about, has always been teaching people to play Pathfinder in a simple, understandable, verbal format. A lot of people are auditory learners, not visual. So my goal is to give those auditory learners the ability to read the rules, quote unquote, in a way that makes more sense to them.
To grow a fan base, you need to appeal to the largest demographic of people, and my most popular video, What Your Favorite D&D Race Says About You, was a theory I put to the test. I'd make the lowest bar for D&D content imaginable, remove all my flashy editing, 1080p webcams, and mechanical bloat to instead just relate with viewers as closely as possible. That video now sits as the most popular on the channel.
To back up that theory, for the longest time, for 2 straight years, my most popular video was every Pathfinder class in a nutshell. It was a 2-minute long video. It took me 45 minutes to make it. 5 minutes of scripting, 5 minutes of recording, half an hour of editing, and 5 minutes of uploading. That's it. And it was my most popular video for years. Because at the end of the day, people like simple.
Many of you who already clicked off don't know what the OGL drama was even about. Many hear the name of a different tabletop game and pass out. Something as simple as using a word in a script that sounds too complicated will bore more of you away, and no segment is iconic enough to be clipped and sent to your grandparents. An artistic video about the state of the D&D community, riddled with nuance that'd make anyone's head spin, with a seemingly lazy editing style. Truly a recipe for obscurity.
Oh yeah, I almost guarantee this video, unless this video goes hyper viral and explodes one day, it's gonna underperform compared to Blaine's normal stuff. That's my theory, at least. I have not checked. I think I saw it had like 27,000 views. I don't know what Blaine's normal viewership is, but I know they've had multiple six-figure videos.
I'm sorry if you are, but it means a lot that you're at least trying to follow all of this. Are you angry?
I'm loving this, Blaine.
I'm sorry these thoughts didn't live up to expectations, but on a mountain of burning passion like this one, someone just speaking calmly and rationally felt like a break from the status quo. I'll be the first to say something controversial, not to be on any high horse of correctness, but just to get people thinking.
Valid. It's like playing devil's advocate, you know? There's something to be said for it. There's something to be said for getting conversations started, and I think that's totally healthy. A lot of people do look at that as, oh, you're just trying to make people upset. It's not the goal. It's how you're choosing to interpret what they're doing. Doesn't mean that's what they're doing. And your interpretation can also be valid, but don't hate them assuming you know what they were trying to do. Does that make sense?
Show every side of this community we've yet to see, agree, disagree, and debate everything so that by the end I can read it all and maybe learn a thing or two myself. Point is that this video was a love letter to the tabletop gaming community in the hopes that it repairs some broken hearts in the process. Let's continue to grow D&D, whatever that means for each of us, together.
I love that. Yeah, I definitely agree with the message Blaine is getting across here. I think a lot of this can be applied to TTRPGs as a whole, not just D&D. But I also understand, like I said about the marketing thing, it's easier to say D&D. If Blaine said this video titled as Getting Over the TTRPG Community, it would get less than half the views, possibly worse. If Blaine started talking about TTRPGs universally rather than just D&D, it would underperform. People would leave faster. People wouldn't care because people don't call their passion TTRPGs that often. They call it D&D. When I'm talking to people that I don't know what they know, if I have a Pathfinder session at night, I say, hey, I have to go play D&D later. It's just the state of the game. State of the game, state of the landscape. But no, Blaine, this was spectacular. I love it. I love that you put your soul on the line here. You know full well that you're opening yourself up to constant hate in the comments, but I really think that's a great idea that you added the I made it clause to, you know, think about which comments are actually worth reading. Fantastic job. I love it. I loved the unique style. That's what pulled me into this video originally. I know that's not what YouTube likes, and like I said, I'm actually really curious here. Let me see how this is performing compared to Blaine's other videos. Like I said, I don't think it's going to perform that well. It's doing decent, you know? It's 27,000, you know, compared to 2 videos from a month ago that was at 200,000 and 90,000, but it's got time. We'll see. Like I said, I could see this video exploding, but Blaine said it themselves that this video is not what's popular. People don't like a long, lengthy, slow, artistic video. They want fast, silly, dopamine payoff. And that's getting true of a lot of things in life. But Blaine, phenomenal work. Thank you for letting me react to this. I hope I did you proud. Oh, I think I agreed with you on most of it. There were a few things here and there that I piped in about. But if you did enjoy this video, please do leave a like and then go and subscribe to Blaine Simple. They make great little animated videos, and I just really enjoyed this entire experience, Blaine. Thank you so much. If you've only watched this on my channel so far, please go watch the full video because I cut out a ton of it. For as long as this video is, I probably cut out a good 10 to 20% of the original video, if not more, because I don't want to just take that video and make it mine. So if you want the full context and Blaine's entire side, go ahead and check out their original video, linked right at the top of the description and in the pinned comment below. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones.